Om Soham Tatvamasi. Om, you and I are one with the one universal God of all creation and no other. Jai Bhagavanji. Victory to God the beloved, that beloved universal I am that I am, which you are. Somebody posted something on the internet that said that because of what I teach, I'm going to go to hell. I don't know who this person is. I've never met him or her. It hides behind a wall of internet obscurity and makes these pronouncements. What I want to know is, have any of you ever met God directly? Face to face, so to speak? Have you ever been in perfect union with God, let alone perfect final union with God? Gee, that makes it kind of tough to judge, doesn't it? Makes it kind of tough to judge. See, that's kind of like me saying to you, you're not here in this sanctuary, so you must be someplace evil. If you aren't with me, then you're someplace evil. I don't know, you might be in church. But I say to you, if you're not in this sanctuary, right here with me, where I'm broadcasting from, then you must be in a house of prostitution. You must be in a bar. You must be out robbing a bank or a liquor store. Because you're not here with me, see? This is the fundamental definition of bigotry. And bigotry is also stupidity. You're not in this room with me, so you must be out doing something evil. So this guy happens to be a Christian, writes to me and says, if you don't believe in the Bible, then you're evil. That's like me saying, if you're not here in the sanctuary with me, you're out doing something horrible. You're out whoring, or drinking, or gambling, or robbing, or stealing. How stupid is that? And yet that is what so much of religion in this country is built upon. Religion around the world is built upon. Well, I have been in union with God. I have been in perfect final union with God. Twice. Twice. And I've sacrificed it. At God's request and God's behest, I sacrificed it to come back to this world of suffering, sorrow, and death. Oh, Maitreya, you're so negative. You're so negative. You know, isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing in our world today? Maybe it's a media thing. I don't know. Maybe it's television. Maybe it's radio. But in our world of today, all you have to do is put a tag on something and nobody can say it anymore. We say that's not politically correct. So what do you say? He can't say it because it's not politically correct. I just read a thing on Drudge today about some CNN commentator that was thrown out of his job because he made some remark about his feelings about gays. Holy God! Gays make remarks all day long about heteros. And they're not very nice, believe me. They're not very nice. I'm not preaching for or against here with regard to the gay issue, because that's not the point. And we could go on for a long, long time here over that. The point is that this man can't speak the truth as he knows it anymore because it's not politically correct. And if I tell you the truth about this world, if I tell you the truth about what's going on in this world and what's going on in you and what it's all about, then I'm negative. Okay, call me negative. Now what do you got? You see, the antidote for this garbage, this restriction on free speech, is do it anyway. Oh, but I might lose my job. Would you rather lose your job or would you rather lose your freedom? If you have freedom, you can go get another job. But if you lose your freedom, you're stuck, brother. You're stuck, sister. So bully for this guy. I don't care what his opinion was. I didn't even read his opinion. But whatever it was, bully for him. Because he had the guts to say what was in his heart. Instead of pandering to this 1.5% of the population of this country that's gay. Now, I don't care if they're gay. I'm not going to go out and hunt them down. I'm not going to beat them up. I'm not going to put them in jail. I don't want them to be married. Because marriage is something that is an institution between a man and a woman to produce children and raise families. Not for people to stick their things in places they shouldn't go. And that's okay, man. If that's what you want to do, go ahead. But don't tell me it ain't perverse. It's perverse, and you've got the right to be perverse in your own home between consenting adults. That's part of freedom. And I'm not going to infringe on it. But don't tell me I have to like it. And don't tell me I have to praise it. And don't tell me I have to support it. Because I don't have to. You don't even know if I do or if I don't. But I don't have to. And neither does this guy on CNN. He shouldn't have to. He spoke his truth. He has the right to speak his truth without being censored, suspended, or fired, or punished in any way, shape, or form. Or we don't have freedom of speech. And we're damn close to that now. So people who write in are going to say, oh, your talk was so negative. You know what? Hit delete. Bug off. Get out. If I got one person left watching this broadcast who's got the guts to confront reality as it is, I would rather have that than the whole mess of the rest of you. No, Bhagavan, you're not, Maitreya, you're not going to win friends and influence people with that kind of talk. No, I'm not, and I don't care. There's only one friend I care about. There's only one person's approval. There's only one approval and one stamp of approval that I care about, and that's God. And if God isn't truth, then what is He? Now, He's not your truth. He's not my truth. He's not her truth. He's not His truth. He's beyond all that. He is the truth. And unless you think that your mind is so huge, so immense, that you can get your arms around God, or get your mind around God, then trying to say that you know the full definition of God makes you the biggest bumpkin that ever fell off the turnip truck. I have been in perfect final union with God twice. I can't tell you. Oh, I can give you analogies. I give you metaphors. My favorite one is that if this entire creation was a grain of sand, God would be the Sahara Desert. That's how immense God is. And you try telling me that you got it all wired because it says something in your book. You tell me that you got it all wired because you had an experience with Jesus, or Buddha, or Muhammad, or Krishna, or Rama, or Abraham, Moses. I don't care who you had an experience with. Your mind is too damn small to grasp God. It says on this scroll behind us, God is the one greatest mystery. Mind cannot grasp Him, only Spirit can know Him. Because you are Him. All right, let me put it a better way. People get a big fat head when I say you are God. They go, yes, I'm God. I rule the world. No, you don't. You don't even rule your bowels. God is you. God is your true self. God is that spark of consciousness that's right now upset at me for what I'm saying. Or smiling at me for what I'm saying. That's what God is. But God isn't confined to your mind. God isn't confined to your mind. Your mind is like, if you took your mind and said, okay, my mind is a grain of sand. then creation is the Sahara Desert. So now you just figure that all of creation is the size of a grain of sand and God's the Sahara Desert. What are you talking about? Oh, we philosophize, we psychologize, we theologize. We do all these jizings. And we think we're so damn smart. You're not. I don't care whether you're holding my book, the Holy Book of Destiny, in your hands, or whether you're holding the Holy Bible in your hands, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, the Buddhist scriptures, or any other book in your hand. You don't have it. God isn't in here. Well, God is in here because He's in everything, but He's not confined to your book, or my book, or anybody else's book, or definition. And I want to tell you something. This world here has a beauty to it. It has a kind of beauty to it. The sky, we say, is beautiful. Are you going to say the sky is beautiful when somebody's plunging a 6-inch dagger into your chest and your stomach? No. You think you'd say that, oh, the sky is so beautiful. No. Are you going to say the sky is beautiful when you're being raped? Are you going to say the sky is beautiful when you're dying of tuberculosis and spitting your lungs up all over the bed? See, the sky is only beautiful when you're in good condition. The sky is only beautiful when you're in good condition. And when God asked me to come back here, I said, I don't want to go back. That is a world of suffering. It's a world of sorrow. It's a world of death. And it's a world of rebirth. You've got to come around again. And, oh, I don't believe in reincarnation. Don't talk to me about reincarnation, Maitreya. I don't believe in it. Well, it's a good damn thing you don't believe in gravity either. You know why? Because you'd be falling down all the time. No, you come back. You come back time and time and time and time again, times a million, times more times than our national debt. You come back eternally until you attain perfect final union with God. Now, what is perfect final union with God for you novices? It is that state of being in which the drop of water that you are as a soul, which is a spirit, goes back into the ocean and becomes the ocean. It's not heaven. It's beyond heaven. It's so far beyond heaven that it makes heaven look like hell by comparison. Now, heaven's a wonderful place. Heaven is the ultimate wonderful place. But being one with God is so immense and so great that heaven looks puny by comparison. Perfect final union with God is higher by an infinite number of steps above heaven than heaven is higher above hell. Because when you reach perfect final union with God, you lose yourself, your puny self, your false self, this temporal self, this ego self, and you become what you have always been, God. There's nothing higher. There's nothing more blessed. There's nothing more beatific. There's nothing, there are no words to describe it. You might just as well tune it out right now. It's the unspeakable. I've been there twice, I know. Oh, you haven't been there, you haven't been. How do you know I haven't been there? What the hell do you know about where I've been? You arrogant person. Well, you haven't been there because it doesn't say so in the Bible, and you don't talk like you don't talk like a guru. You don't sit there and say, oh, and throw flower petals at people. You're talking like, what? Why are you so angry? I'm not angry. I'm exuberant. And I'm determined that you're going to know the truth about the world that you live in. This is a world of suffering. Not suffering right now? You will. You absolutely. Oh, that's negative thinking. Don't put that in my mind. You're suffering because you're trying to keep negative thinking out of your mind. This is what you call negative thinking. You're suffering because you're trying to keep the truth out of your mind. You have a pet? You ever have a pet? A dog? A cat? I have a cat. I love him dearly. I've had a lot of cats in my life. They've all died of natural causes of old age, mostly. It breaks my heart every time one of my pets dies. I cry. Not just a little, a whole lot. It breaks my heart when my friends die. I'm 68 years old. I'm in that zone. But you don't have to be 68 years old. You can be 28 years old. A good friend of mine died when I was 17. Ran his car over Manchester Hill and ended up on Pershing Drive upside down. From my high school. Suffering. Sorrow. Death. That is what this world is made of. Oh, you can find happiness. But the only way you're really going to truly find happiness is when you get your head out of your, well, where you keep it, and confront the truth of this world as it is. Now, I would be a criminal. I would be terrible if all I did was come here to tell you about the suffering of this world. I show you the suffering of this world, but I also show you the way to go beyond the suffering of this world. I give you the way to go beyond the suffering of this world. How do I know? Because I bought it for you with my 2 self-sacrifices of giving up perfect final union with God. And then I did something else. You know, in the Christian Bible it says if somebody compels you to go a mile with them, go 2. Go the extra mile. Well, God gave me the choice to come back here. I didn't want to come back. And then He showed me all the suffering in this world the way He knows it. Personally, up close and personal. See, God is both impersonal and personal. A lot of you like that impersonal stuff, don't you? I'm going to do yoga because God is impersonal. And I can think whatever I want and do whatever I want and go wherever I want. And I don't have to follow any rules. Funny thing, dude. Funny thing, dudes. The universe itself has to follow God's rules. But let me get this straight. You don't. Wow. What a guy. What a gal. What a fool. What an idiot. Of course you have to follow God's rules. You don't have to. Let me straighten that out, though. There's a little kink in that hose. You don't have to follow God's rules, but if you don't, you're going to suffer for it. And so God showed me all this suffering, and I couldn't take it. Gee, maybe He coerced me, huh? Maybe He intimidated me. Maybe He bribed me. God intimidated? He showed me all the suffering in the world and let me feel it for a moment in eternity. And it was the worst thing I have ever experienced. And I'm not just talking about rapes and murders and people being sold into sexual slavery and little boys being sold for kinky sex and crap like that. That's bad. I'm talking about the internal suffering and sorrow and death and rebirth that every soul has to face. I was blown away. I was overwhelmed. And I said, Father, I will never again enter into perfect final union with you until I have seen every last soul in this creation safely home into perfect final union with you before me. But I will go back as you requested. And I will live out this life in an ordinary body. He didn't tell me it might have prostate cancer one day, which it does. But I will live out this life in an ordinary body. And when this body is through, when I leave this body, I will ascend into the spiritual realm and live in the heart of every soul, guiding every soul home to you. That is my vow. That is my pledge. And he said, okay. And then he said, because of your sacrifices and your vow, I give you this new covenant. I give this new covenant to all souls through you. That whosoever will receive the true enlightenment of your holy initiation and follow you to the end of this life, the end of his life, to the end of her life, I will give that soul the very perfect final union with me that you sacrificed for the sake of all souls. And that soul will come home into me as a drop of water into the sea, as a wave goes back into the sea when it is finished cresting, never again to be born, to suffer, to sorrow, or die again. I kind of said to myself, What have I just done? What have I just done? I have put myself at the end of the line of all souls going home into perfect final union with God. That could take forever, or twice forever, or 10 times forever. What have I done? But it was too late, you see. When you make a vow to God, the minute that it's made, the second that it's made, the instant that it's made, it's made. Don't try, please, don't try breaking your vow to God. I've never had, because I know what the consequences of that would be. All that suffering I experienced at one time, that would be mine. You don't break your word to God. You can lie to your boss. You can lie to your wife. You can lie to your husband. You can lie to your kids. You can lie to yourself, but don't try lying to God. The consequences are horrible. Oh, but now you're just living a life of fear. You're preaching a religion of fear. You bet I am. You bet I am. Not fear of anything in this world, because this world has nothing to offer compared to God. And it's not God that punishes you. See, God's not a punisher. God's not going to come down and go, bang, hit you in the side of the head, give you cancer or something like that. You punish yourself. God sets up the rules of His creation. Everything in this creation has to follow God's will and God's rules. A sun out there in the galaxy, out there in the universe someplace, when it's time for it to go to supernova and explode and wipe out 500 planets around it, it goes to supernova and it explodes. But you in your arrogance think that you don't have to obey God's rules or will. And I'm not talking about the rules in the Bible. I'm not talking about the rules in the Quran. I'm not talking about the rules even in my book. I'm talking about the rules of God's creation. The rule of God's creation is that if you go up on a 15-story building and jump off, you're going to squash like a grape on the sidewalk down below. I don't care who you are, how good you are, what you've written, what you've done, or anything else. The rule of God's creation is also that if you see a little kitten out in the middle of the street about to be hit by a car and you run out there and a truck hits you and kills you, you're dead. Regardless of the reason you went out there. And if it hits you and kills the kitten too, you're both dead. Well, that's not fair. That's not... It is fair. It is fair. What kind of a chaotic universe would this be if you ran out in that street and the truck hit you and the kitten and you didn't die? Or weren't injured? Suppose the truck went right through you. Suppose you went right through the truck. What kind of chaotic universe would we have here? Think, people. Everything has to obey God's will in this universe. Now, the fact that we can create things in our minds that are unreal, the fact that you can imagine a rabbit that has horns like antlers, you can do that. But believe me, you're not going to find a rabbit with horns unless somebody's tinkered around with its genetic engineering in these days of technology. You can imagine anything you want in your mind. But it's not going to save you from suffering. It's not going to save you from sorrow, and it's not going to save you from death, and it's not going to save you from rebirth. Now, if you're watching this, you probably have a pretty good birth behind you. You probably have a pretty good life behind you. The people that are sitting here, I see a college education. I see some military training. I see people who look good. I see people who are healthy, people who are sharp, people who can think, who have good jobs. Here's a paralegal over here. Here's somebody else who's an attorney. Here's somebody that's a scientist. Good for you. I'm glad for you. I've got 2 degrees. Bachelor's in psych, master's in behavioral science. Marriage family therapy license. I don't use any of them. But I got them. I earned them the hard way. You know what it means? In the long run of things, absolutely nothing. If you don't come to grips with the fact that God's universe is constructed the way God's constructed it, it's integral, it works together, everything works together, and that you are subject to His will as He put it into His universe, boy, are you going to suffer. You're going to suffer beyond anything you need to suffer. Well, where's the happiness, Maitreya? I mean, where's the relief? Where's the release? Where's the happiness? The happiness is in the truth. Have you ever heard the truth, that the truth alone will set you free? Accept God's will as He manifested through His universe of creation, and you will be a relatively happy person. You will be a relatively serene person. That still won't get you off the wheel. That still won't get you home into perfect final union with God. You'll still keep coming back time after time. And please spare me the hippie BS that every time you come back it gets better and better. I'm on an evolutionary track, and next time I come back I will be better. Well, wait a minute. There's this little thing called karma. You see, karma is what determines how you come back the next time. Karma is, let's put it simply, it is the universal law of cause and effect. It says that whatever you cause, you will experience the effects of that cause. Now, you notice I didn't say you'll experience the cause. You'll experience the effects of that cause. If you tell a little white lie to somebody, I don't know why they call them white lies. I guess white lies are better than black lies. Hey, is that racist? Maybe I've said something politically incorrect. If you tell a little white lie to somebody, and that gets blown out of proportion and goes to somebody else, and that person tells it to somebody else bigger, and that person tells it to somebody else bigger yet, and that guy gets his gun and goes and shoots somebody because of you, you're responsible for the whole chain of events, not just the little white lie. And you suffer the karma of the whole chain of events. Not only that, but it doesn't stop there. Maybe the guy he shot had a family, and now he's dead, so the family doesn't have any money, so the kids turn to crime, become drug dealers, destroy thousands of people's lives. You're responsible for the whole shebang, brother. You're responsible for the whole thing, sister. And you're going to come back in better shape every time. If you make one misstep, you can come back a whole lot worse off than you were any of the times before. You can. It's that kind of universe. It's that unforgiving. Oh, but Jesus will forgive me my sins. He will forgive you your sins, but He won't forgive you your karmas. Nobody can. Because that's the way God set the universe up. You'll notice, let's see, have you ever had well, I try to find something that's common to people. Have you ever had something that's favorite to you, that's breakable, and one day you fumble it and it falls on the floor and it crashes into a million pieces? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Could you put the pieces back together? Even if you did, with super glue and everything else, would it be the same? No, it wouldn't. Forever is gone once it crashes to the floor. That's God's universe. Now you may challenge me and say, well, explain why God would put it that way. No. I am not arrogant enough, even having been in perfect final union with God twice, to try and explain God to you. All I can do is tell you what. The who, where, why, and when, you're going to have to work out for yourself. But I'm telling you that that is the way it is. Have you ever had anybody die in your family? Are they still around? Did you bring them back? Are they coming back in the form that they were in when you knew them? No, never. Not ever in the entire history of the universe will they be back. Till the end of time. Because once a thing happens in God's creation, in God's divine design, it is done. That's why we have in our code of a Maitreyan a passage that says, be sorry for those things you would regret doing before you do them. Because once you do them, they're done. Those two little words that you think are going to get you off the hook. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If you pick up a gun, and then you say, you're in the middle of the night, you hear a noise, something happens, and you're groggy, maybe you took some sleeping medicine or something like that, and you're afraid that some lecherous bastard has come into your house to rape your children and your wife and kill them. And you take your .45 and you go, oh, boom, boom, boom. And then the smoke clears and you look and you find out it's your wife or your husband. Can you ever undo that? Jesus will forgive me. That's true. Jesus will forgive you. But you will still ride out the rest of eternity without that husband or that wife. Be sorry for those things you would regret doing before you do them. It's part of our code of Maitreya. Maybe you should check it out. This is an unforgiving world. It's an unforgiving universe. It's an unforgiving creation. Now, you can forgive your motive. You can forgive your guilt. But the actual things that happen are unforgiving. How could it be elsewise? You cut down a tree to build a house. You blow out the stump. You take it all out. You walk back the next day and the tree's there. Are you kidding? You've been taking too much LSD out there on the ranch, if that's the case. No. God built His universe to be an integral whole where it all works according to His will. I don't mean His willing of the moment. I mean His will, the big W, rather than just, well, God's will for me is that I go to college. What? What? Really? I did a whole talk on this, so I'm not going to repeat it. But there's only one thing, only one plan that God has for each of you. One plan for each of you. One size fits all. Now that would be impossible under most circumstances. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be an Indian chief, you want to be a railroad conductor. How can God have one plan for all of you? Because His one plan for all of you and for all souls is freedom. This is the Maitreyan symbol for freedom. It stands for free will, free choice, self-determinism, individual freedom, and absolute inescapable personal responsibility, or you can call it karma. You notice that karma is right next to personal responsibility? That's hard to do, but there it is. Karma and personal freedom, individual freedom. Individual freedom and karma are right next to one another. They're that close, you can't separate them. And so, here we are in this universe. Why do you have as much suffering as you do? You're going to have suffering in this world, believe me. You're not going to get out of it. I don't care if you have 5 kids and you're Bill Gates and you're going to have the best medical stuff on earth. You're going to watch one of your kids die. That's suffering and sorrow, brother, sister. You're going to watch your wife die if you outlive them. If you don't, they're going to watch you die. And you're going to suffer as you die. Believe me. As long as you don't know the truth, you're going to suffer when you die. When you know the truth, your body will suffer, but you won't. Because you'll know that you are going into perfect final union with God when it's over. If you have God's new covenant, and if you have fulfilled it by following me to the end of this life. I wish I didn't have to say, follow me to the end of this life. I'm not an arrogant, pompous seeker of power. I despise it. God said it, I didn't. I have no more leeway to say, oh, you can have holy initiation, you can get God's new covenant, but you don't really have to follow me. Then I have the ability to say the sun will not rise in the east tomorrow. It's God's will. The same as the star that goes supernova and blows up. The same as the chemical reaction in your body that either gives you cancer or keeps you from getting it. You see, it's all fixed. You either know it and you cooperate with it and respect it, or you get bit by it. I love it because hippies, see, I used to be one. Hippies are so fond of idolizing the Indian. The Indian knows nature and knows how to be harmonious with nature and cooperate with nature. Yeah, that's kind of cooperating with God's will, isn't it? How did they find that out? Well, they didn't have the benefit of television. They didn't have the benefit of cell phones. They didn't have the benefit of a bunch of LSD or pot. They didn't have the benefit of sitting around philosophizing and theologizing about it. They had to survive. And if they did the wrong thing, they were dead. How do you think they learned to cooperate with what you call nature and I call God's will? Some damn fool stepped off a cliff, and they went down and found him with his skull crushed and his guts all over a rock. Said, that's not a good idea. Don't do that. Right? And yet we, with our technology, think that we're immune from that stuff. Think that we're immune from it. We're so stupid, so dumbed down, that we are ready to give this government that can't even run its own affairs power over our lives. To tell us what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat. Eventually, to tell us how long we can live and how long we can't live. You really want this government in the place of God? It's a good government structure. It's a good government system. It's the best on the earth. It was inspired by God and written down by God-inspired men. But it isn't God. And believe me, the people who get in power in this government aren't God. Some are good, some are bad. Some are wise, some are stupid. Some are well-meaning and some are diabolical. And you can make up your mind who's who. We can't give this government power over our lives. Because when you give a government power over your lives, you reject God's power over your life. And when you do that, disaster is certain. You see, there are a whole bunch of people, not too far back in history, that decided to give one man power over their lives. That one man was Adolf Hitler. And that people were the hard-headed German people. And if you don't know what happened because of that, boy, did you miss some classes in school. Go find out. You got an internet. Look it up. It's called the Nazi Party. It's called the Holocaust. Some people say it didn't happen. But then some people say the rabbits have horns. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that you are certain to suffer. You are certain to sorrow. You are certain to die, and you are certain to return to this world to do it again and again and again and again and again. 1,000,000 times 1,000,000, as I said, more times than the dollars in the national debt. Unless you receive God's new covenant. You receive the true enlightenment of my holy initiation and follow me to the end of your life according to God's determination, according to God's declaration. And God says that if you do that, He will give you what I sacrificed for your sake, which is perfect final union with Him. You get to go home. You get to pass hell. You may pass through hell. You get to pass through hell, you get to pass through heaven, but you get to go on home to the destination of perfect final union with Him. And as the drop of water, you cease to be a drop of water, but you become the ocean. You're free. It's not just perfect final union, it's perfect total freedom. This is what God promised. But God promised something else. Never to not have the last word. He said, now go forth and give this to all the people of the earth. And I said, but Father, I'm only one soul. I'm only one person. How can I do that? He said, I will give you this, my supreme promise. And this is a supreme promise. That when there are enough souls on this earth who have received the true enlightenment of your holy initiation and are following you home to me, according to my new covenant, I will spontaneously, without judgment, without qualification, without reservation, spread my new covenant into the heart of every soul, and every soul will have the opportunity to come home into perfect final union with me, at the end of his or her life. And the holy age of my pure divine truth will reign on earth. And universal salvation and liberation will be a reality, not just a dream. I call that divine critical mass. That's the meltdown of darkness and the dawning of the age of universal God's pure divine truth. I paid the price of your salvation and liberation. I paid the price. I paid your way in the perfect final union with God. But you have to fulfill it. How? You have to fulfill it, first of all, by following me to the end of your life. Second of all, you have to fulfill it by helping me to create this divine critical mass by giving, transmitting, communicating my holy initiation to other souls and bringing them into a holy community of the faithful that will spread this new covenant throughout the world. Oh, you'll be hated. I won't lie to you. We've had death threats because of this. Why this is such a big threat, I don't know. You know, this is in no way a rejection of heaven or paradise, of Jesus or Allah, any more than if you say, draw a straight line between here and New York, that New York is an invalidation of Des Moines, Iowa. That's not quite a straight line. It's not, unless you make it that. It's an extension. It's a bridge further on. But if you want to make it that, and people will, why? Because they want to hang on to their power. They're like drowning men hanging onto a bag of gold. They won't let go of it, so it's going to drown them. This is a terrible, terrible, horrible world, unless you're lucky enough to be born into a situation where you don't have to look at it. Open your eyes. Look around the world. Get on the internet. See what's happening to people in Angola. See what's happening to people in Biafra. See what's happening to people in New York City. In the slums of New York City. How'd you like to grow up in the slums of New York City? Think about it. Look around and see what's there. The only reason you think that I'm a negative person is because you haven't done your homework. You haven't looked around. Because if you do look around, you're going to come back and you're going to say, my God, Maitreya, I had no idea there was that kind of suffering in the world. You're a lucky, lucky man. You're a lucky, lucky woman this time. And you have an opportunity not only to secure your own perfect final union with God at the end of this life, but also to secure the perfect final union of literally hundreds or thousands of other people through your efforts in this world at transmitting my holy initiation and God's new covenant to others, and mentoring people and being a guardian to people to help them to stay on the path, to help them to go out and spread this new covenant throughout the world so that no tyrannical force, no dictatorial force, no agency of evil and darkness can stop it. I don't know if you're hearing me. Are you hearing me? Can you hear me in your heart? I'm not a crazy person. If I'm loud, if I'm boisterous, it's because I'm trying to shout through that barrier that you've put up in there to keep you from seeing what is real all around you. We all wish that it would be different, but it is what it is. You can't shoot somebody on Monday and go back and have them be sitting at their desk on Tuesday. But Jesus brought people back to life from the dead. I'll grant you that. I did the same thing with my brother once, because my heart was breaking from my mother's grief. You know what happened to my brother? 2 months later, after continuing on with taking lots and lots of heroin and methadone, he lay down on a couch, and my mom said, he said, "Mom." And she went in, and he was dead. Well, where is the person that Jesus raised from the dead? Bring him in here. Right now. Well, no, that was a long time. That was 2,000 years ago. Of course he's dead. Get it? Jesus did that to make a point. Maybe the point he was making is this guy's going to die anyway. Don't look at the miracle. Look at the miracle maker. This universe is God's will made manifest. It is not flexible. It is not subject to your supplications. It is not subject to your preferences. One of my own Maitreans a couple of days ago said, "Well, I thought God took things into consideration." No, he doesn't. Well, let's see, if he was supposed to take something into consideration, would he take into consideration that you didn't have to lie the last time you did, but you did anyway? Would he take into consideration that you had an extramarital affair? Would he take... See, you don't want him to take into consideration all the wrong things you've done. You only want him to take into consideration what you want him to take into consideration. This is what should be, but is almost never recognized as taking God's name in vain. You arrogant fool! You think that you can dictate to God what he's going to take into consideration? Oh, no, I don't want him to take my extramarital affair into consideration. I just want him to take the fact that I give to charity into consideration. My heart goes out to you because you have no idea what a terrible, terrible future you're making for yourself. God will not punish you. God never punished one single person. Now believe me, God is both personal and impersonal. As I said, the hippie types, the New Age types love that impersonal thing because they can do whatever they want. But over here we have the Christians and the people who believe in a personal God, and they believe they can do whatever they want too because their sins are forgiven. Paul had a terrible time with this. Poor Paul. He goes to Greece, feasts with the Greeks. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. That's probably coined by Paul. I don't know. And he started a church in this one town in Greece. And then he moved on to another town. He started a church, started all these churches and left them behind. And if you read the letters that he wrote, he says, quit having orgies. Quit drinking yourself into a stupor. Quit eating like a bunch of gluttons. What's wrong with you? And they said, well, we're forgiven. Why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? So over here we have the hippies that think they can do anything they want because God's impersonal. I don't know how they come to that, because gravity's impersonal too, but you can't do whatever you want. If you think so, just try making your chair raise up about 20 feet off the ground without any supports. And over here we have the Christians and the personal God types, and they feel that they can pretty much do whatever they want because they're forgiven. The truth alone will set you free. The truth alone will set all souls free. And the sooner you come to grips with the nature of the world that you live in, the sooner you will be able to live a decent life. The sooner you will be able to live an intelligent life. The sooner you will be able to live a divine kind of life. Because you have learned the lesson. You've been through the crucible. You have been through the changes. The illusion is shattered. The brutal truth is yours. And once you accept the brutal truth, it's not so brutal anymore. What do we expect? Do we really expect that if a plane with 250 people on it crashes into a mountain, that they should all walk away from it? Do we really expect that? Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Especially if your relative's on that plane. People, God is merciful. And you're going to say, after all saying all this, you're going to tell me God is merciful? What kind of idiot are you? God is merciful because of things like this. God is merciful because He sent Abraham to us. God is merciful because He sent Rama and Krishna to us. God is merciful because He sent Moses and Jesus and Muhammad and all of the other mercies that He sent to man. God is not going to be merciful by changing the entire design of His creation to suit your whims or needs or desires. And so, to become a Maitreyan, you have got to accept the true nature of God. And the true nature of God's creation is brutal. If you put your hand in a meat grinder, it's gone. I don't care who you are. Might be the greatest pianist on earth. Oh, but I made such beautiful music, and I did charity all the time for people. Look at my hand, it's gone. Yes, because you stuck it in a meat grinder, you idiot. But I was only running out in the street to save a poor little kitten or a child. And this truck hit me and broke my back and my neck and tied me up in knots, and my guts came out my throat. Yeah, that's the way it works. What kind of world would it be if it didn't work that way? God would have to revise the entire design of creation so that it wouldn't be that way. And then it would be some other way, and some other guy would do something and say, I don't want it to be this way. You write a good science fiction book around that. Of one person after another passing the baton and being able to change the world into what they want it to be. And while I'm banging your ear and telling you the dirty nasties of existence, I want to tell you this. There is nothing on this earth that you should be afraid of more than you should be afraid of trying to lie to God. You can't lie to God. Trying to deceive God, or making a promise, a vow, or a pledge to God and then not keeping it. Oh, but I made the pledge, and I try every day to keep my pledge. No good. No good. Suppose we change the scenery a little bit here. Suppose the situation is that you have a family and they depend on you to bring home food. And you go down to the ocean thinking you know what you're doing, and you drop your line in there, and every day you come back with an empty bucket. You know what's going to happen? You're going to watch your family die. But I do the same thing every day. I do the same thing. I put my pole in there and I don't get any fish. The other guys get fish. Maybe you ought to find out what the other guys are doing. Because the only thing that's important is, do you have fish in your bucket? Not did you try, not did you read the right book, not did you bait your hook with something that fish just can't stand or anything else. It's, do you have fish in your bucket? It's that kind of universe. It is that kind of universe. We have tough times coming, and you're going to have to make tough choices. You're going to have to get down to it like the Indians did. Why do you think they were so in tune with nature? Because they realized that if they weren't in tune with nature, they were going to die. And if you don't bring home a fish, I don't care how hard you tried. I don't care how much grieving you did over the fact you didn't get any fish. Your children are getting skinnier and skinnier, and they're going to die a horrible death of starvation. And you are responsible. Get out there and get some fish in the damn bucket. Because that's all that counts. You see, we have the luxury of growing up in a society where, I remember when I was growing up in Iowa, I had kind of a temper. Really didn't like sports. And I had this one guy that would always say to me, son, it's not whether you win or lose that counts, it's how you play the game. Bullshit! Excuse my French, and I apologize if your kids are listening. But I'm going to say it again, so cover their ears. Bullshit! That only applies in football, baseball, soccer, and the like. Because if you play the game the way somebody says you should play it, and your business goes bankrupt and your house is sold on the mortgage block and your family has to live in a Volkswagen bus, you're going to comfort yourself by saying, well, I played the game the right way. I don't think so. The real world doesn't work that way. God's world doesn't work that way. You can go down and say, I did all the right things. I did what the other guys do, and I don't have any fish in my bucket. It's not my fault. Yes, it is. There's no fish in the bucket. You can come here and you can receive the true enlightenment of my holy initiation. I told you there's a little price to pay. And I bought your lotto ticket for you. It's a $1 billion lotto ticket. More than 1 billion. 1 multi-trillion, I don't know. There's not a big enough number to talk about perfect final union with God. I bought that lotto ticket for you with my own self-sacrifice by giving up my own perfect final union with God and putting myself at the end of the line of all souls going home into God. You have to go cash it in. If you don't go cash it in, is that my fault? You know how to cash it in. God told you how to cash it in. Follow me to the end of this life. And help me create divine critical mass so that all souls will have universal salvation and liberation. That's it. That's it. That's it. It's not that complicated. When you receive my holy initiation, you make 3 sacred vows. That I will practice God's eternal universal religion in all of its purity as it has been given to me by God through Maitreya, the friend of all souls. That I will preserve God's eternal universal religion in all of its purity the same way. And I will propagate God's eternal universal religion in all of its purity as God has given it to me through Maitreya, the friend of all souls. Propagate. It doesn't mean go down to the pier, throw your line in the water, sit there for 8 hours and come home with an empty bucket. You got to bring home the fish. And if you don't, then you are betraying God, you are betraying the suffering souls of this world, and you will suffer for it. Oh, he's preaching a religion of fear. Yes, I am. But it's a fear that you can avoid. It's not a fear that's inevitable. But I'll tell you this, you should fear betraying God far more than you fear getting lost in South Central Los Angeles and being raped and killed by some drug cartel over a period of 10 days. That's nothing compared to the suffering that you bring upon yourself when you go back on your word to God. That's why in our code of Maitreya, it also says, be careful in making commitments and keep all commitments once made. If you think lying to the Mexican mafia or breaking your word to the Mexican mafia would have serious repercussions for you, it's nothing compared to breaking your word to God. Now some people will say, well, I didn't know that when I did it. I really didn't know that, therefore I don't have to keep it. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. The minute it came out of your heart, or out of your mind, or out of your mouth, it was done. Just like when I made my vow of compassion to God, and I said, what have I done? It's too late. It's made. It's made. I have paid for your lotto ticket. I will put it in your hands for free, either directly or through someone who has it. But you have to go down and redeem it by doing what God said is necessary to do, which is to follow me home to Him to the end of your life. And to help me to create this divine critical mass by spreading His new covenant to all souls who will receive it of their own free will and bringing them together in a holy community of enlightened, faithful Maitreans. That is what you have to do to redeem this lotto ticket. to redeem this gift. Now, if you're out there and you're watching this and you're one of the people who've left, who've gone away, said, I reject this. I had a guy who sent me back his sacred scroll, his pendant, his religious articles, and said, I am no longer a Maitreyan, in essence. We didn't use that term back then, but that's what he said. And I wrote back to him and I said, you might just as well take your birth certificate and send it back to the hospital where you were born and say, I wasn't born. Be careful in making commitments, because you will have to keep all commitments to God or suffer the most heinous, horrible results that you can possibly, well, you can't even imagine it. And it's not God that's doing it to you. It isn't God that's doing it to you any more than if you walk off the top of this building and fall down and break both legs and both arms, that God did that to you. You did it to yourself. You know gravity is there. God's will is God's will. It is not amenable. It's not malleable. It's not changeable by you or your prayers. If you're going to have any prayer, it should be, God, let me know your will so that I can be in harmony with it. And don't let my ego get in the way. Then you might have a prayer. So, I have shown you, I believe, if you will look around the internet, look under suffering, look under torture, look under murder, look at all of the stuff. Go look on your internet and see what's going on in your world. The Buddha said, I show you the source of all suffering and the way to its end. Well, I show you the source of all suffering. I show you suffering. I preach suffering to you. I preach the nasty part of this life to you. And as I said in the beginning, that would be a downright crime if I just left you there. But I don't. I offer you God's new covenant for the taking. But believe me, if you take it, you also take the responsibility to fulfill it. And you also take the responsibility to help me create divine critical mass. Both while I'm in this world and after I've left this world. Because when I've left this world, I will not go back into perfect final union with God until the last soul steps across the line into perfect final union with Him before me. But I will stay in the spirit realm, within the secret inner sanctuary of every soul's heart, guiding every soul home to Him. And I don't mean guiding them home by throwing flower petals along the lane. Oh, there is that. It's a beautiful thing to follow God. It's a beautiful thing to have God's new covenant and fulfill it. Even if it means following me, which I wish it didn't. God's will, not mine. But there's not just the carrot, there's also the stick. It's not something I'm making up. Think about it. Do you really expect that God is going to revise His entire realm of creation just to satisfy you? There are miracles. They have reasons. A miracle is that which we don't know the reason for. The laying on of hands, if you have the right state of mind. If you are really hooked in to oneness with God, can have powerful effects on sick people. Jesus demonstrated that. You know, people say, "Oh, that's you're being you're blaspheming by saying that." No, I'm not. Jesus said, "These things and more shall you do." These things and more shall you do. He said it. If anybody's blaspheming, I guess he is, huh? Hardly. He's my brother, as is Buddha and Muhammad, Abraham and Moses, Rama and Krishna, and all of the other mercies, including Maitreya, and all of the other mercies that God has sent to man throughout the ages. No, he wasn't blaspheming. He was telling you. And yet people sit around and pray for him to do it, instead of going out and doing it themselves. Maitreyans, don't be like that. Don't sit around and pray, Maitreya, would you do this? Would you do that? God has given you everything. I've given you His new covenant. Get out and do it. Put fish in the bucket. Bring them home. So that we can build this community. So that we can create this divine critical mass. So that we can stop this madness. So that we can defeat darkness and free people from their slavery to the endless rounds, the endless wheel of birth and life, suffering, sickness, fear, pain, sorrow, old age, death, and rebirth again and again. And get them home into perfect final union with God. Why am I wasting my time? See, those of you who think I'm nuts, or think I'm evil because I don't live in the same house you live in. If you don't live in my house, you must live in an evil house. That's the equation. You're not going to listen to me anyway. But there are some of you out there who are like the undecided voter. You know, there's the Republicans and the Democrats. I won't tell you which side's evil. Let you make up your own mind. But in between, there's all these undecided voters. Maybe you're an undecided voter. Maybe you're not a Democrat or a Republican. Maybe you're not a Christian or a pagan. Maybe you're not any of those. Maybe you're undecided. And if your heart, well, if you were going to turn me off, you would have turned me off a long time ago, so you wouldn't even be hearing what I'm saying. So if you're still here, and your heart tells you that this is for you to do, then you decide for God. And you decide by coming and receiving the true enlightenment of my holy initiation in His new covenant, and begin the journey of following me home to Him, and building this holy community, developing this divine critical mass, to bring forth the age of His pure divine truth on earth for the universal salvation and liberation of all souls. If that appeals to you, then you're one of mine, and you're one of His. If it doesn't, have a nice night. Om Soham Tetramasi. Om, you and I are one with Paratpara, the one universal God of all creation and no other. Jai Bhagwanji, victory to God the Beloved, that beloved universal I am that I am, which you are.